automatic. You ain't no now, you know. I'm the one raise myself like a tree from the roots. West side girl, cause she lit in the coast. East side girl when she speaks to the roots. Stay 100 cause she on with the truth. Been there on struggle, know that it pass. Only going up, yeah, the pain don't last. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. This is take off. Shorty like Brandy, fight like Monica. What you know about her? Baby girl rising, way to the top. Shaking the world, don't expect her to stop. Purpose so great, she get what she got. Follow her step, cause she following God. What you need more, got a heart full of gold. Even at times when it's raining and cold. Ooh, she bout take off.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Uprooted Network. It's your girl Hannah, aka Ruta, and today is Black Women Wednesday. Y'all, I have the one, the only Dr. Tameka with me. Those of you who have been in the community may have had the pleasure of speaking to her, but if not, I am so excited to have her on today. Welcome, Dr. T.
Thank you. It's so great to see you, like, for real.
I know, like, you can see my face. I know we're not on Clubhouse with our little beautiful PTRs.
I know.
This virtual world that we live in. But yes, y'all, Dr. T, I got introduced to you obviously through Clubhouse. I just so happened to see Therapy Thursdays. I said, "Oh, what's this?" So I went in there, and you were spitting gems. It was such a beautiful place and space that you guys had created. And so I had asked a while back if people remember Aiden to come on and to highlight the work that you guys were doing. And I've definitely got a lot of questions after that in terms of boundaries and how do you cope so well and this, that, and the third. I said, man, having a psych degree is pretty helpful. Like, it'll get you some places, you know?
Yeah, it will.
And you, I feel like sometimes we speak in the same language. I'm like, yeah, you better tell them. Like, that's right. You better tell Dr. T. But even sometimes, right, like we need just that person. Even if we know the stuff, we need that person to bounce off and to help check us. And that's what I really feel like therapy is. And it's very rare that we find people in this field that actually understand us, that have the cultural competency to speak to us and to actually give us therapy. So I'm always happy when I see someone in this field that does this and does it so beautifully. So I'm honored. I'm excited to have you on, because this is going to be a tough month for me. And I was like, I need the real ones around who know how to, who know how to do this work. So I'm excited. But for people who don't know you, can you talk a little bit about kind of how you, like, who are you? Who's Dr. T? How did she get into therapy?
Woman, right? Yeah. Well, I'm just a girl, you know, that's how I like to introduce myself. I'm just a girl who strongly believes that wellness and wholeness have to come together. You know, when you just tell somebody, hey, how are you doing? I'm all right. I'm doing well. Okay, but what does that actually mean? And so through a series of unfortunate events in my personal life, I ended up going from being a classroom teacher to a school counselor, then started working with students with addictions, right? And now in a place to where I am literally looking at what is the culture and climate of your campus? What are you doing on an administrator's level to kind of help all kids feel included? And then just on the side, I'm also working with just humans. I have realized that when I taught second grade, and then when I dealt with high school kids, and then dealt with their parents, it's all the same. It's a second grader's issue in an adult with a mustache, right?
Right.
Really what it is belongingness and connectedness. And, you know, when I was going through a lot of my personal storms, I started realizing that I wasn't alone in what I was going through, but in the moment, I felt so isolated from the world. But there's a community of people who want to support you, be there to support you. And I just had this natural knack for kind of helping people through some of those abstract things in life. You know, we all know when your gas gauge is low, put gas in the car. But what about your emotional gas? How do you manage that, right? So I went back to school to try to figure out what that looks like. So with Blue to New guidance, I'm able to help people just navigate some of these hurdles and these obstacles. I have a blog, www.bluetonew.org, where oh yeah, it's a good time. But really what happened is I was broken in marriage, and I want to retell my story over and over again. So I created a blog to where when people say, hey, how's marriage? I can just send them this website. You can read it, and then we can have an informed conversation if you have questions after that. But kind of just embarrassed about what happened in my life. And then I allowed myself to just become very vulnerable with my wife. And I was very surprised at how many people resonated with my story. Again, one of those situations where I thought I was alone and realized that there's a world of people who are experiencing the exact same things and just needed a person to say, hey, this happened to me. And then they can say, hey, this happened to me too. I don't have to be embarrassed with you. So I kind of just allowed the saying, borrowed something blue, something old, something new. And I was just wondering in my head, what do I do with my wedding dress, my wedding ring, my wedding pictures, and I have no man to show for it? And I'm embarrassed and humiliated that this happened to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from something blue to something new and allow myself to repurpose what's going on in life. And if I can help somebody manage the stresses in their life, whether it's related to marriage or motherhood or being a student or paying off debt or just those insecurities of, I'm 35 years old and I still haven't discovered what my purpose is. Can you help me? And maybe this platform can help normalize the human experience so that way we can all come together and find some solutions. So that's Dr. T in a nutshell.
I love that. And that's a lot. I think people just skipped a whole lot of gems. So I like to break it down for them.
Go for it.
First and foremost, say the name of the blog one more time.
Something blue to something new. So
something blue website, to something.
Yeah, www.bluetonew.org.
Okay, I'm about to put that in the caption right now. Blue to new. Okay, like blue to new. That. I love a good name.
There you go. It's blue to new. 2 is the number 2.
Got it. Yeah. Blue to new. I'm telling you, I love that because I was just saying that to you before we got on, right? Like I'm as uncomfortable as I am. Did I spell it right? I put it on the screen.
Yeah.
As uncomfortable .org.
Yeah.
Ooh, let me fix that. I don't want them going the wrong place. It's really difficult, right? I get a lot of people, and Tadhasa, she's like, you're like the vulnerability champ. And I'm like, maybe I make it look really easy. Like I think I do, but people don't often see the pain and like literally me pulling myself up to like get to a place where I can even share with you guys what I went through. Cause I gotta, like, I've always had this like, well, let me figure it out first and then I'll share. Right. Yeah. And this month is a testament to not doing that. Right. Because I was like, I keep kind of sharing the aftermath of things. And I know it's somewhat helpful to people, but the types of questions I usually get back are like the details, right? Like, what does that feel like? Like they, you know what I mean? Like they're really trying to connect. And I was like, all right, this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Yeah. For people who know, I've lost 2 family members. I'm sure there's more, but 2 family members that were really close to me. And I was like, how do I honor them? And how do I like turn that experience into something better for somebody else? Right. And I think that was a common theme of what you were sharing. And like people that tend to be in this work are trying to save people from like things that we've already experienced or that we know how to get through. And we just have that healing heart of like, yo, all this pain and misery that I didn't have to suffer, look, it better be for something. Like I'm always telling myself, it better be for something. There has to be something that comes out of this. And I don't know if that's like my mental trick of how I always get through things, but it's worked so far. Okay. So I'm gonna just keep riding it till the wheels fall off,
For
and
sure.
speaking about it and talking, like, just talk. That's what the beauty of talk therapy is, but actually being able to name your pain
For sure.
and to not have to be ashamed of it or hide from it
Mm-hmm.
is therapeutic in and of itself. Like, so I wanted to do that, and I wanted to do it with you because I knew you'd understand this
Yeah.
this work and this topic. And I'm just like, wow, she did a lot of stuff like to get here, because like it don't come easy. It
No,
really
not at all.
doesn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think something for me, so usually when I come up with themes or whatever, I'm like, what do I want people to learn from it? What do I want them to gain from it? And so, trigger warning to everyone that we are going to talk about some things that are hard to listen to and to hear, but domestic violence is so pervasive. Like, it is so prevalent. It really should be a public health issue,
Yeah.
where we're actually putting funding around it. And I feel like there's a lot of effort on the back end, right? And it's a problem I see in this country. There's always like, let's treat the symptoms of things instead of like, what is the root cause of this? Like, why is this happening? And like, why don't we try preventing it? And
Yeah.
so that's really my intention and hope with doing like this episode, but also the series this month on Clubhouse, and like breaking it down further, is like,
Yeah.
we got to really understand this problem and like why it happens and how it happens, and what are some things that we can understand about it so we can prevent it. Because God forbid, like, one day I'm gonna bring kids into this world, and you are a mom. So it's like, we think of these things of like, we've either seen it, been through it, know
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's been through it. It affects everyone because the numbers are staggering. 1 in 4 women, right? And those are the same statistics for sexual assault. 1 in 4. That is a scary number.
Yeah.
Like, that is not like, there's certain cancers that get more funding and they kill 1 in 100. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It
Yeah.
might be like something ridiculous, and that's 1 in 4 women, 1 in 9 men.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight too, because sometimes this is painted as a women's issue,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that's probably why it doesn't get funding, because women's issues don't get funding in this country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but it does happen to men too. It just looks
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
So, um, I wanted to ask, first and foremost, how do you understand or define domestic violence?
I really broaden it because a lot of times when we talk about domestic violence, we hone in on the word violence, right?
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
we started to say that violence is this heinous act, it's this physical form of abuse. But
Yes.
domestic violence can also be a lot more subtle, and which is why I say that 1 in 4, I think that's a very flawed statistic
Mm,
because that's what's reported. But let's talk about manipulation. Let's talk about
mhm.
economic suffering. Let's talk about, the stalking that happens. Let's talk about the extreme control that a lot of people go through. And how
Mhm.
do I call the police and say, hey, my partner is keeping me from, I don't know, eating 3 decent meals a day because I
Yeah.
haven't done these things on a checklist of what they require in a relationship. Or, and sometimes we look at it as partner to partner, but
Mhm.
even if you're in a situation where your child is suffering some of these things,
Yeah.
the bonus parent that mistreats this kid because it wasn't the one that they birthed to, that's also domestic
Mhm.
violence. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This unnecessary punishment that's happening over here, and it doesn't happen
Mhm.
over here. And even if it does happen over here, it's still violence. So
Yep.
I like to look at it as when there is an extreme version of mistreatment going on within this family unit, I consider that
Mhm.
domestic violence. And when you feel uncomfortable, and there's that, the way we define it in schools with bullying, whenever
Mhm.
there is this authority and this intimidation, that's bullying.
Okay.
Whether or not
Absolutely.
it is cyber or physical or, whatever the method is, there is an authority and there is an intimidation factor. And when it comes to domestic violence, that's kind of how I look at it. There is an authority and there's an intimidation factor that's happening within this family unit.
Yes. And that's a really good like overall definition, because I do think that we hyper focus on the stereotype of a boyfriend girlfriend fighting. We ignore the fact that not all relationships are even heteronormative, right? Like there's all different types of relationships. So I even think about it in if you are a gay couple, who are you stereotypically gonna assign as the abuser, right?
Exactly.
So you like, it is broad, right? Like, and taking it out of the gender is really helpful, because it's not just an intimate like partner, like romantic partnership. It's partnership of any domestic sort. Like, you are in close proximity with these people, they have access to you, and they have the ability to punish you in some way. Right. And it's not always physical, right? So I like that you bring up bullying and cyberbullying, because a lot of it is mental and emotional too. And I think that people always underestimate it because it's the part you can't see. Like, there's not a physical bruise that you can easily show someone, right? Like, we already have issues in this country addressing mental health, right? So explaining to somebody the things that are happening in your head, and you don't even have the language, and it's hard to express or like show, like, how do you, where's your receipts, right? Like, you don't have them. And we're in such a culture of litigation that everyone wants proof, and by the time you have proof, it's usually too late. And that's what people really don't get. And so I love that you bring those things up, because it's not always physical, and I think in most cases it doesn't start off physical.
Oh no, it doesn't. It doesn't. No, for sure. I mean, just think about it. If I were to be in a situation where somebody who, let's say they're cool, we're good, just hauls off, gets in an argument with me because we're trying to figure out whether or not we want apple pie or pumpkin pie, right? And this person hits me, let me tell you, we both going to jail that night. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to just hit me and get away with it. So this grooming that happens to where, you know, at some point I feel bad, but then I feel safe. And then I feel bad, and then I feel safe. And then it gets to a physical place. By the time it gets to that physical place, I'm kind of afraid of you, because of some other things that may have taken place. So, of course, if somebody were just to assault me right out, I'm pulling out my phone. We might get it on TMZ. The cameras are going to be involved to where I have physical evidence that this is what's happening. But in a place to where I'm already intimidated to talk about it, it's because some psychological things have happened already. There's been some abuse and some other forms that took place. It happens a lot, like on college campuses. Like, people are automatically going to think, you know, romantic relationships, but these college roommates.
Yes, I've had a doozy of a couple of them.
It's not a romantic involvement at all, but it's cattiness, and there's that intimidation factor. And you'd be surprised how many people feel forced to remain in certain organizations and friendships because of the domestic violence that's happening within that organism.
Yeah, I was an RA for a year, and some of the incidents that we would have to like approach and handle, insane. I've had, you know, sorority sisters that have been in these relationships, the abuser and the victim, okay? Like, because women can also be abusive, let me tell you.
For sure.
And I don't think people talk about that. I'm like, I think they almost downplay when a woman is physically abusive, because they're like, well, you're a man, you should just handle it. Like, oh yeah, but you can only take so much, you know, of people constantly berating you. And we already know that men don't have enough like safe spaces, especially Black men. So when you are mentally and emotionally abusing him, and he already doesn't have a safe space to go to, you really think he's gonna tell his homie, like, my girl, she's really, like, he's not gonna do that. He's not.
And think about what the repercussions are if he does respond, right? So society plays into that as well. We have these movies, these blockbuster hits, where the woman gears up and gullies up and she gets back at this man. But imagine if that same script were written the opposite way, where you have this psycho woman and then he just goes and chokes her and he's the hero at the end of the story. Probably not, right? So in cases where a man is experiencing this type of domestic dispute, he's also in handcuffs psychologically, because if I physically remove myself by physically doing something to you in this situation, I will automatically be deemed as the victim, as the culprit. I'm the criminal because I fought back. So I'm already in a lose-lose situation, because I am in a situation where, yo, you a man, you let that woman do that to you. But if I stop her from doing this to me, oh, you're abusive. You know, so it's like, I wish that, and this goes, you know, across the board when it comes to interpersonal relationships. We've got to figure out a way to be proactive and not reactive. Okay?
Yeah.
And if we teach people the skills and the tools that's needed for resolving inner turmoil, then the thing that we need to resolve internal us doesn't explode and become external us. Most times when you're in these kinds of dispute, the person who has inflicted harm on the other person is tormented on the inside.
Every time.
Tormented on the inside. Because trust me, if he were or she were to meet her physical match or her psychological match, oh, you're going to respond differently. But me coming home from the work day with all of these stresses, I'm going to take out on the people who can't defend themselves, because I've been put in a situation where I feel like I can't defend myself and I haven't been given these proper tools. You know what I mean? So while I definitely agree and believe that in these disputes, there needs to be some consequences, you know, some legal consequences, I also believe that while incarcerated, or, you know, while in your mental health facility, there needs to be somebody that talks to you about the root of what's going on with you. Else, after your sentence is served, you're back at it, and probably with a vengeance, you know. And if you're the victim in this situation, that cycle of attracting these types of people and relationships continues, because there's something psychologically that happens when you are in these types of relationships that feels like my value is coming from my ability to fix you. And when you realize you can't fix this person and this person goes away, you end up in another fixing type situation, you know, and that issue may show up differently. It may come off as, you know, you can't be everybody's nurse, basically, you know. And so that's an issue that sometimes I feel like people don't really recognize, is that the victim and the abuser need some help. They all need help.
They really do. They really do. And I want to even circle back a little bit. And someone asked the question, why are abusers so nice at the start? So that's what I wanted to jump into. So that's perfect, is cycles, right? So domestic violence happens in cycles. And you had already mentioned earlier the concept of grooming. And I don't think that everyone is familiar with what that means, right? So jumping back there, when we're thinking about even how you explained it, I had a human learning class, and he literally broke down, like, with human learning, like tools, how you create those like psycho exes, right? And how you create these toxic relationships. And so what you were explaining is like considered a gambler schedule. So so you guys who have addiction, there's correlations here, right? You start off like normal roses and butterflies and, you know, all the beautiful like honeymoon whatever to get you, right? And then you have, what they'll do is test a boundary, right? They'll do something small that you're like, okay, that wasn't too big of a deal, and you might let that go. And then they'll maybe give it a bit of time, and then they'll try something else, and they'll just keep pushing those boundaries to see what it is that they can get away with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it continues on this cycle, and then you don't know when you're going to be on an upward swing or a downward swing. And
Mm-hmm.
then at this point you're being groomed, but
Yeah.
you're not even aware, unless you know the signs, you're not even aware that this grooming process is happening.
Right.
So
Yeah.
did I miss some steps? If you want to add to that?
No, not at all. There's a whole study, the Milgram experiment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes a little bit, it expands a little bit, because what this man, Stanley Milgram, was Jewish, and he was trying to figure out, how did the Holocaust even happen? Because in a normal world, you're not going to say, hey, we're going to exonerate this whole entire
Mm-hmm.
ethnicity, and this is how we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how did you even get people on board with this system? Okay, so he did this experiment where, people are in this room, and after a certain, you've got to shock the people that are in the other room. So imagine, I'm in here in a control room, and there's some people inside of a darker room or another room, and your job, when they get things wrong, to turn on this knob that sends an electric shock to them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so at first, it was hard for the control group to shock these people, because it's like their guilty conscience, like, oh, it's hurting them. But then the idea of, but I'm being told to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the reason why I'm doing this is because the person got a wrong answer. Like, if they want to avoid being shocked, then they need to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And even though at first they felt guilty about that, grooming happened because of that intimidation factor. And there's something that happens with us psychologically, that we automatically connect to being affirmed by our appraiser,
Mm-hmm.
which is why we'll do things, sometimes even unethical things, for the person who rates us, more so than establishing that loyalty on a person that's on a brother-sister level. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if my shady boss asks me to do it, I might do it, because this might, you know what I mean? Psychologically, we're taught to be obedient to our authority. And when your authority is corrupt,
Mm-hmm.
and they show you these deals, and they make you feel comfortable and all of that. But at the end of the day, with the Milgram experiment, the whole point was to exonerate an ethnicity. So the person that walks into it, they probably have a plan. But there's also some parts of that person that generally, and when I say the person, I'm talking about the victim, there are some things that this abuser may have rescued them from. I'm just thinking about the number of people who are in a better financial situation in these toxic relationships. You came from, even the victim sometimes came from an abusive family.
Mm-hmm.
So while this is my norm, a lot of us live our lives in comparison to other things. It's not as bad as what I've experienced. I don't want to go back to homelessness. This person has value. I know that I can't get a better person than him, because of whatever economic status that person is in, or position of power that person is in, or prestige that comes with being associated with this name, some of that kind of stuff. A lot of that goes into it. So abusers, if anybody were to walk around with a sign that says, hey, I'm here to destroy you, we would run, right? So it's natural for an abusive person to not, like, we got to realize this, because this is like one of the biggest misconceptions, that abusive relationships start off abuse. No, they start off as any other relationship.
Yeah.
They start off as any other relationship. There's something we have in common. We both like bowling. We're very much into Black Lives Matter. You love women with locks. So now I'm locked in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's over time that I realize that this is not healthy. But sometimes the victim is starting to think, well, that's just one thing. He just gets mad when this happens.
Yeah.
She just gets upset when this happens. So I'll change in order to make it better. You know what I mean? Because you are also remembering those sweet stages. And instead of recognizing these red flags, you're looking at those red flags as moments and not character flaws.
That part.
Yeah.
It's so easy to justify like smaller things, right? Like because we don't want to believe that most times, like that we're being abused or that this person is
Mm-hmm.
capable of that. So a lot of the times I feel like our brains will protect us by trying to find some justification. Even if that justification is like, well, I shouldn't have made them angry, or I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have done it this, and you start blaming yourself too. And that's what they want you to do, because that's the part of the cycle.
And that
And
gaslighting happens. It wasn't that bad. Okay, you know what I mean? You start really believing sometimes
yeah,
I merited this. I
and
caused
I
it.
made the decision.
Mhm.
I put myself here, and you start to blame yourself for all of these things. Um,
Yeah.
we had another question. It says, "Are abusers mentally ill like narcissists?"
I think anybody who feels like it's, I won't say okay, because I can't say all abusers think it's okay, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that the illness comes in the fact that you don't exercise your power to cope differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you think that when you put your hands on someone, or when you manipulate someone, or you know, intimidate someone, that is going to regain homeostasis in your life. To me, that's
Mm-hmm.
mentally ill. It is mentally ill for me to believe that the only way, or the best way, or even the easiest way for me to get my way is to make it difficult for somebody else. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Some of them do have DSM-5 type category issues. You know,
Oh
some
yeah.
some of this stuff is, you know, classic narcissism. Some of this is, you know, a more severe disorder where a medication might be necessary. You know, sometimes it shows up as anger, but what it is clinical depression. You know,
A
and
part.
I get a high, like there's a euphoria of seeing a place in my life where I have control, because I'm spiraling out of control when I close my eyes right before I go to sleep. I'm
Yeah.
spiraling out of control every time I walk into the workplace. I feel like the bottom of the totem pole in some other areas. And then there are some people who have what I like to call entitlement issues. You feel, for some reason,
Mm.
like everything has to revolve around you, and you get so angry. And that's where that narcissism comes in. You know,
Yep.
you get so angry and bothered when you don't get life the way you want it. And it's like, yo, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, there can definitely be, you know, abusers can definitely fall into the category of having some clinical dysfunctions and malfunctions. Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, I don't think a sane person does that, right? Like when you are healthy and whole, there is no need for you to control other people, because
Right.
it's enough work to control yourself. Like,
Can I just get places on time? You know,
listen,
can I have a good hair day 5 days a week? You know, like
you know
that
what
kind
I'm
of stuff.
saying?
Yeah,
Can I
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure I ate all my meals? Did I
Right,
exercise this week?
right,
Oh dang, I got laundry.
right.
Did I remember to shower today? Like, you gotta like real. There is so many things that we already have to do as human beings, and I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of the time, at least when you were talking about it, what I kept thinking about is the people who externalize their problems instead of wanting to focus internally. It's just easier to deal with other people's lives and control that, and externalize all their issues because they don't want to
Hmm.
deal with inside.
Hmm.
And it's on every scale, right? Like,
Yeah.
this not just for abusers, it's even people who are not abusive, right? Have this same problem of externalizing everything and
Hmm.
feeling this, like, this need to be in control,
Yeah,
and to be in charge and be the leader. And we have an overconfidence problem in this country, and it's usually on faulty foundation.
for
Like,
sure.
it's right, like, you're not actually confident, you're just pretending to be. And when those cracks start to show, that turns
Hmm.
you into a person that we don't want to be around. Like, I have had to avoid plenty of those.
Yeah,
Like,
for
plenty of
sure.
those. And I will say too, a lot of times, abusers are attracted to people they feel they can manipulate, right? Or that are easy targets to them, or you just have such a bright light over there and they have a fake one, and so let me come over here and combine with that, and it is threatening to them,
Yeah,
right? It is
yeah,
threatening to them because you're the real deal while they're faking it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so their control over you makes them feel better about themselves.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And sometimes there is this unspoken hierarchy this person is walking around with. And in their
Mm-hmm.
head, they're justified in their actions, right? It
Mm-hmm.
happens a lot of times with, the parent-child relationship. Well, since
Mm-hmm.
I am the person in authority, when you don't comply, this can be and gets to be the remedy for that,
Oh
and then
yeah,
parents don't realize actually that's abusive.
it
You
is.
telling your kid, okay, you're not going to eat this week. Okay, seriously,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's a form of but in their head, they don't see it that way. They see it as this is a natural consequence because you are my subordinate. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and in that situation, the child sometimes doesn't get an opportunity to have an advocate because who am I going to tell? I'm going to get in trouble if I tell my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Because then my teacher's going to call CPS and CPS is going to come to the house and then I'm going to get abused some more. So that's
Mm-hmm.
another spiral and cycle that happens in the lives of people who are also in these domestic violence type situations. They're afraid of the repercussions they know that they want out, but if
Yeah.
I even try to get out, that may wake the sleeping dragon
Mm-hmm.
and worse things can happen as a result of my planned escape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes people are also staying out of fear. They're quiet out of fear. It's not always oblivion. Sometimes it literally is legit fear because I don't know how angry he or she will become if they
Mm-hmm.
find out that I want out or if I tell,
Absolutely.
you know,
And fear is debilitating.
for
Like
sure.
it is very debilitating, and there's a lot of us who avoid the hell out of things that scare us, right? Like on a basic level. So when
Yeah.
there's an actual threat, because I've learned a long time ago this acronym for fear, which is false expectations appearing real.
Yeah.
And when you've actually had those expectations come to life and to come to fruition, that's like it almost feels like it's not even a fear anymore. It's a guarantee that that's going to
Mhm.
happen, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
at that point, the only person you can control is yourself.
Yeah.
And so you're doing whatever you can to stay out of that, like because
Yeah.
you are avoiding that pain in any way that you
Yeah.
can. And it's not easy. Like you touched on some other things of, well, what is your escape plan, right? If you're a child and these are your caregivers, it's not like you are in a position where you can take care of yourself, right? Like,
Right. Right.
and that relationship is so hard because the people who are supposed to love you and to raise you up and to bring you up are the ones abusing you. And so
Mhm.
who do you turn to? Where do you run to? It's not like you're not 18, you ain't getting a credit card. You
Right.
can't, you can't do most things without a legal guardian.
Yeah.
So that is like literally feeling like entrapment. And then
Mhm.
you have for a long time women who have been raised to be submissive to a man,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that their livelihood is dependent on a man. It makes it very hard for them to turn around and
Yeah.
and walk away, because where are they walking away to? Because
Correct.
something else that abusers do is isolate you, right? In those situations, um, they isolate you from your support system, your
Yeah.
friends and your family.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do? Like you've been gaslit, you've been on this cycle with them. You've been telling people, oh, it's not so bad, and oh, you've been making all these excuses, and so you have a lot of guilt and shame
Mhm.
around how do I come now to these people that I've been pushing away and tell them that I need help, right?
Yeah.
Like most of us are scared to ask for help for basic things, like very basic things, let
Yeah.
alone like I need an escape plan to leave my abuser. Like that it's not an easy conversation for anyone to
Right.
have.
Right. 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 Which is why I definitely agree that the funding needs to happen. You know what I mean? And those
Mhm.
proactive measures need to happen because, you know, nobody's expecting. We don't go to work every day assuming that we're going to have a tire blowout, but the spare is there. And so it's, AAA and your insurance, it carries that in there. So suppose, within these clauses, we're able to, like, we know that there is this place to go in these situations, and this is who we can call, and you know what I mean. But to look at my phone and have to look up the hotline, and said person has control over my phone, and I'm locked in the house all day, you know what I mean? It's very difficult. So that's why I always tell people the most important thing that I have in my life is my support system. And anybody who comes in and out of my life, these are the people that you have to deal with. It's not just me and you. It's me and us. You know what I mean? And you can be a part of this collective, so I would encourage everybody out there, as soon as you feel those isolation tendencies happening, that's the time when you get out, because you are going to need your support system. And quite frankly, who wants to celebrate your triumphs alone? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when things are great, let's say you're having a great, relationship or partnership or whatever, well, your support system is also going to be there to cheer you on. So when you feel like you're being isolated from the people that you care about and love, that in and of itself is a red flag that I wish a lot more people would recognize and articulate, like, hey, I need to go home and visit my people. I need a girl's day out. I need a boys' night out. Can we have some friends over? You know what I mean? So that there's this constant understanding that you are a part of a village, but I'm not going to remove myself from my village for the likes of you.
That part. There were a few comments about most abusers were abused themselves. And we touched on that in the beginning, right? There's that whole, the whole statement of hurt people. Like, you learn this behavior somewhere. You don't just innately come out of life ready to abuse people, right? Like, it's something that is learned. And so that was something that Dr. T talked about earlier too, is that usually the abuser needs resources too, to figure out why they're this way to begin with, or why they're acting this way. And there's something else that I feel like is really heavy and preventative that we could be doing. And I think it's surrounded, or it's more so, how do we change the culture within our communities so that we are having regular conversation, right? Are we teaching our children and each other what is normal behavior, what is acceptable, and what is abusive? Because I don't think people really understand the difference. And I feel like a lot of times people are like, well, calm down, I'm just joking, right? And it's like, no. That might be a funny joke to you, because you're not understanding the context. You're not understanding where that comes from. You don't understand how your joking makes other people feel uncomfortable. And it brings shame and embarrassment to people. So if they're already having issues, it's going to put them even like further in the closet. They're not going to come for help. And I feel like something in our community, and I say our as in like the Black community, is this idea of hiding relationships a lot of times. I know for me, especially, if you African and you're an immigrant, you don't bring your significant partner home. You don't do that.
Really?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Let me plug this charger in. Yeah, Dr. T, you thought I was bringing my boyfriend over? No. No, listen, we are taught very young. You go to school, you get a job, and then magically you get married and have kids. Dating is not a conversation. Dating is not a conversation in our ethnic group. It's just not. I haven't met an East African that has had otherwise, right? There might be those one-off families. But by and large, we are not bringing let alone our significant other. It's hard enough bringing our friends over. Like, if you are not of the community, most parents are very strict in terms of, we didn't have sleepovers growing up. It was your cousins, and that's it. if we don't know their parents, we don't know
Mhm.
where they're from, this, that, and the
Mhm.
third, you are not sleeping over. So you
Yeah.
can imagine that we're not having the birds and the bees conversation.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not having that conversation. If we're not talking about dating, then we are not setting us up for success, because we don't know what's normal and what's not in
Yeah.
dating.
Yeah.
So we're basing our understanding off of TV or
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever examples are around us. And then if your examples are also abusive, then
Yeah.
you think it's normal,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So who are you
Yeah.
going to talk to?
Oh yeah, because you're living in this hierarchical system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes very patriarchal at that. So that's why
Hmm.
it's so disproportionately in favor of men being the abusers to women, because that's kind of how that society sets up. I know we said this a lot of times in Therapy Thursday that your experiences as an East African resemble a lot of people's experiences in the Black church. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's this idea that, okay, this is how you avoid abuse. Do it God's way. You go to college, you get
Hmm.
married, you abstain from everything sexually, and then you get there, and then you don't withhold from your husband,
Yeah.
right? Because that's just in violation of the covenant that you made.
Yeah.
And talk about it, pray about it, but don't let the world in on what's going on with you. That's between you
Hmm.
and God and between you and your husband. And if but then you end up in these abusive situations, and
Hmm.
all you have in the back of your head is submit yourself to God and sanctify your husband, honor your husband, you know what
Hmm.
I mean? And it's like, hey,
Yep.
yo, I'm being hurt over here. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you just want me to pray about this, but I need out, you know? And so it's
Hmm.
like, but he doesn't do this at church. He's not abusive to y'all. You know what I mean? Like, he's in a pulpit, actually, you know?
Yeah.
So the world is singing his praises, and I'm coming home living a much different life. And who am I going to tell that to? Because he's a celebrity in the church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a
Hmm.
lot of that. That's why I say that intimidation factor, because then I come off as the woman with the scarlet letter if I
Yeah.
expose what's happened. And a lot of times I've seen this go on so much, so much, so much, but then I get this wonderful gift for the pastor's anniversary. You know what I mean? All these
Yeah.
things that might be happening. So yeah, you are absolutely right. Sometimes culture plays into it. And while in America, we're very individualistic, there are certain communities that are very collective, right?
Very.
And from what I understand of, your Ethiopian culture, there is a lot of that collectiveness that goes on to where it's like, hey, don't disrupt the system. And sometimes if the system is toxic, it just, how do I deal with that? So
Yeah.
it's a lot. That's why I say it's not just the victim that needs the help, but also the abuser, because sometimes people are away because they think that's the appropriate way to be. Now, I'm not going to go
Yeah.
as far to say when you put your hands on someone, you thought you were appropriate. But again, a lot of these things happen before a physical manifestation of the abuse. And
Oh
you
yeah.
felt like it was okay because, hey, listen, the Bible says a man that doesn't work doesn't eat. So if you're living in my house and you're not doing what I said do, then you don't deserve food today. You know what I
And
mean?
they will
And,
justify it.
and justify, we'll find a reason to justify
Yeah.
this level of abuse and this kitten programming that's happening, right?
Yeah.
And then what have I done? I've raised another child who then reenacts his childhood, her childhood, and their relationships because they
Hmm.
heard these same fables, right? It is the misinterpretation of sound doctrine that's happening.
Yeah.
It's the misunderstanding of love and support and a hierarchy. We can submit to each other. Okay.
Yeah.
So even with me being submissive, okay, all that means is that I'm not in it for myself. I'm in it for us.
Hmm.
But it doesn't mean that I've given up myself.
Yeah.
And so when a person walks into any situation with that understanding, I'm bringing all of me. I'm asking you to bring all of you, and we're going to figure out how we can merge these two and be a better system together. But what I'm not going to do is lose me. I'm
Yeah.
not going to lose me.
You're not. Absolutely not. And that's my biggest thing. Is this in this cycle, there is like an overwhelming like loss of self and like
Yeah.
feeling disconnected and
Yeah.
feeling so broken and not knowing how to reach out for help. And it's such an isolating feeling, right? And
Yes.
that is why this is so pervasive and why it continues. And those examples are also just, they're so ingrained, right? They're so ingrained. And Ethiopia as a whole, right? Taking it back there, this year, I feel like I've been in a domestic violent relationship with Ethiopia, right? We're
Yeah,
going through
for
a
sure.
genocide.
Yeah.
And even identifying that way, right? Like I usually am really quick to be like, I'm Tigrayan. I'm like so like I'm distancing myself from that because it's such an abusive time, right? But then I
Yeah.
thought about it, and if we wanted to relate it to this, it didn't just start with this genocidal war, right? For the
Yeah.
last 3 years, we've had passive aggressive things happening, right? Policies that have been enacted, trade routes that got closed, right? Like, turning on electricity, and that's been a constant thing in Ethiopia forever, right?
Yeah.
And even the history of Ethiopia is built off colonization, not by outsiders, but within,
Within.
right?
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is literally domestic abuse, right? Like that is literally one tribe abusing another if we're looking at it on a macro level. And it's just, if you think about it in that essence, right? We have generations of this type of behavior taught to us, right? And we also have silencing taught to us. And we have hierarchy taught to us, because what do you do in a wartime? You listen to your elders, right? Like there is a chain of command. That
Yeah.
chain of command didn't go away when the war went away.
Right.
Like that continued, and that's pervasive in our cultures, and it's very toxic. And
Yeah.
we are, when I say hierarchy, we age, okay? You are a year older than me, you are my elder. Is
Okay.
ridiculous. I swear to God, that's where I get my ageism from.
Yeah.
I promise you, I'm like, that's your elder, that's your big cousin, you gotta listen.
Yeah.
And it
Wow.
I think in smaller examples, it doesn't seem like a problem, right? It's like, oh, that's your older cousin, that's who's in charge, right? But when context is missing, right? When it's like, oh, here's your boundary though. They're in charge, but they don't get to do X, Y, and Z to you.
Right. Right.
That's where the problem happens. And because we don't have those discussions, and we don't, boundaries is like a foreign word. It really is. Like, what is a boundary? Who taught us that? Nobody. Because your parents didn't have boundaries, they didn't have personal boundaries. They definitely didn't have them with you.
Yeah.
You're their child, you might as well be their property, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even that they're doing it in an intentional way. It's just something that has been so ingrained in our culture, and that your family unit and your family name is important. So you don't bring shame onto your family, right? So that's another part that is collective across all marginalized communities that I feel is like there's this sense of like, well, don't you go embarrassing me. I'm like, so your actions and things that happen to you always somehow affected everyone else.
Yeah.
So for a long time, not even a long time, I'm probably one of the few people who just talk openly and publicly about these things, because it's just, people are dying. Like when is enough enough? People are literally dying. This isn't like, oh, he just beat you up. No, people are dying. Like, and it's just ridiculous, because it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to at all. And we should have healthier relationships. And we're also a very religious group of people, right? And something that I noticed that's always missing from these conversations is how does the healthy relationship get built? You only talk about the end results to everything. You don't talk about the work. You don't talk about the details. You just meet somebody and get married. Like, that doesn't even make sense. What are the things that you're looking for in partnership?
Yeah, for
like,
sure. For sure.
How do we define that? And I feel like that's where the brunt of the work really needs to go, is like, let's change this culture and let's stop normalizing bad behavior.
Yeah.
Right? Because those are the things that escalate and turn into horrible actions later on.
Yeah. You know
Because
what?
you've
I think
normalized
you
it.
brought up an amazing point about, what is it that you're looking for, right? I think that a lot of people, when they're talking about a relationship, they, number one, don't know what it is they're actually looking for. And when they do get what they're looking for, along with a whole bunch of stuff, I'm plugging in my computer, along with some other stuff that they don't want, they start to, like you say, negotiate and justify, okay, well, nobody's perfect, all that kind of stuff. So I know now in my, at 39, here's some things that I'm bringing to the table. Okay, so here's all of my story. Here are my children. Here's my career. Here are my inadequacies. Here are my perfections. Here are the things that I know that I screw up in. I need some help in this area, all that stuff. And because I want to protect what I've built, there are some non-negotiables that I have as it relates to a character, right? I can honestly say the person that I want and the person that I am are much more closer aligned now than it was when I was 22.
That part.
So at 22, all I wanted was somebody with wavy hair who sings, plays the piano, has pretty eyes. And when you get that, and this person is extremely condescending, I didn't know at the moment that that was a trigger or an issue for me. I'm just going to think, no, I'm going to fight back. Or I get to a place to where it's like, I'm tired of fighting. I'm going to just let you have your way. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are in that situation. But so I think the first thing is, who are you? Right? Because when you know who you are, you don't want to lose that person. And I need to be matched and paired with a person who is compatible. Right? So when we walk in with the mindset that this person completes me because he or she makes this much money and these are my bills. Or this person looks like a great father and these are my kids. Or this person, has this prestige and this is my background. No. I don't need anybody to put anything in this puzzle piece. This puzzle came completely filled. All I need is a frame.
That's it.
This relationship frame what I have to offer.
Yeah.
And that person needs to think the same thing. Can this person frame what I came complete? And I want to protect what I've built. And I know that certain kinds of treatment, certain types of manipulation, certain mannerisms and characters, some behavior, some attitude issues, those things don't cover me the way I need to be covered. And I'm gonna let you do you, but you won't do you over here. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that comes from, what are you bringing to the table and what are you willing to, partner with someone as opposed to someone wanting to complete you. So I really think that a lot of, like you said earlier, is a lot of the abusers, they see people as prey. And when that person walks into a situation wanting a provider and a protector and not a partner, then it's easy to end up in that prey situation as opposed to a mutualistic, healthy, compatible relationship.
Oh yeah. I call that daddy issues for the girls. I do. I've been calling that since high school.
Yeah.
I'm just like, daddy issues. You looking for your daddy and you end up, he might show you a couple of those things, maybe the things that you wished your dad did that he didn't, whatever it is that, is fulfilling that void for you. Just, to come find out, oh shit, that comes with a lot of other stuff too that I did not bargain for. Like I was not asking for all the other stuff. So it is. And I echo those sentiments. That's why I've been saying that. And I've been trying to tell people, like, fix you before you try to join with somebody else.
Oh, for sure.
Right? We can avoid a lot of those issues, and it doesn't just have to come with age.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
You can study some stuff, right? Like I'm 29 and I've been learning these lessons for the last 10 years, right? And it's just, I think I have the opposite problem where I know myself really well now, and I've done the work a lot sooner than most of my counterparts.
Yeah.
And so they're confused, right? But part of that is because of this, because I've experienced such horrific things, and I have seen so many people that I love in these really abusive situations, right? And I have tried to protect myself in every way that I know that I can, right? And I look for those warning signs, and I look for, oh, you got a temper, hold on, like we gonna have to talk about that. What's your anger management routine? You know,
Right.
like what's going on there? What support are you getting or not getting? Let's talk about that, because you know what, you could just go ahead and be my friend, because we're not gonna play this game.
Right.
You know, and I've dealt with the narcissist before, and thankfully I had a tribe, right? I had a tribe that checked them, and that was checking all along the way, like, what's up with bro? I'm like, I don't know. And it wasn't even, we didn't even fully get into a relationship because of that, right? Like there was always kind of that checks and balance. But
for sure,
it is, when you don't have all of that, and when you don't know to look for those things, it's very easy to fall into this cycle. And that's what I want to avoid. For everyone.
That person ends up becoming your world. You know what I mean? And so I that's why I say my support system is vital, because if one person evades my life, I'm not alone. And sometimes in these situations, this person, you feel that way, you know, like you brought up the child situation. Okay, who am I without my parents though? You know, and so I don't want other parents, because that means I'm going to have other siblings and other grandparents, and I'm going to be in a different, you know what I mean? So it's like all of these other things start falling apart because of this system that's broken. And a lot of times people feel that way. It's all the other stuff that I'll lose in the process, that I'm not trying to start all over, and you know, and I'm just going to try to be better so I can fix it, you know. You're not going to fix anyone. You know, I just really want to hone in on that point. You cannot fix a person. I can hear you, but I can't heal you. Okay. And at the end of the day, a person has to desire change for themselves before they will. And there's not an apology in the world that will secure you if this is their habit. They need help outside of you.
That part. It is, and it's not your job. It's not your responsibility. You didn't enter these relationships with that obligation. That was never your job. And I think when we stop doing this Cinderella, like these fairy tale storytelling to people and to kids, and you know, grooming them for these, like, oh, it's happily ever after. Not really, not all the time, right? Like, it's not always that. So I definitely hear that, and I'm like, like I said, and I'm gonna say this again, I'm doing this series and this talk to help somebody either get out of this situation, right, or avoid. Can we prevent? Can we talk about this? Can we stop normalizing some behavior so that y'all stop putting yourself, and it's not even putting yourself, actually, let me take that back, so I'm not going to victim blame. Stop finding yourself in these situations. Or at least know early enough to walk away before it's at a point where you can't, or you feel like you can't. Because it's really, really difficult. It is. I think when I was in college, the statistic was it takes a victim at least 7 tries before they fully leave. Right. I don't know if that number has changed. I hope it's gotten lower, but 7 times, that's a lot of trying. You know, most people give up after the first try. So I just really commend people. That's why I put the hotline number again, because it is difficult. And when I think about my cousin, when I think about my aunt, for one, I had no idea she even had a boyfriend, right? I knew she was like going out and whatever, and maybe having some fun, but like an actual boyfriend that she was consistently seeing, no idea. And whatever issues we were having in the communication barriers for us at home, it was, I could tell she obviously didn't feel comfortable telling us about it for whatever reasons, right? Whether it was the culture of, oh, you know, you're not allowed to date, and you know that plays a role into it. Because I always see the younger siblings, the younger cousins. The big reason why I even have this platform is because my younger cousins were the ones that pushed me. They were like, other people don't have a cousin like you that they can go talk to, that they can come to me and tell me when they're depressed or they're sad or when this thing happens. Not everyone has that, right? So that's the biggest reason why I do this in the first place. But it is, maybe had she told us, something could have changed.
Yeah.
And I don't want that maybe to haunt somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because it haunted me for a long time of, could I have done something differently? You know, was there something that I could have said? And it was like, no, I had no idea. I had no idea that that's what she was doing, right?
Yeah.
Or that she was dealing with. And to find out when the police knock on your door, that's not something I wish on anybody. I don't want you to get a knock on your door that your loved one passed. So the other thing that you can do is be informed and be ready to catch that person when they're ready to walk away.
Yeah.
The other thing with that statistic is, you know, people who work in this space will tell you, you can't force somebody to leave.
Yep. Yeah.
You can't. You can wish and pray, but you can't force it, because if they haven't let go of the mental and psychological stuff, they'll end up right back there.
Right.
Which is the case most of the time. They might have left and they had a plan, they had a bag packed and they left and then they came back, right? In my cousin's situation, she actually did leave. I don't know what she went back for. I still to this day don't know. But her bags were at a different house.
Wow.
So I just want y'all to really understand that it's not easy on the other side of this. You don't want to wait till a person has passed. If you have a friend that you know is going through this and you don't know which adult to talk to, there's a hotline for a reason, you know, and you can try to get her some resources, but it really is difficult. But the more people that she has or he has in their corner, it makes it easier for them to leave.
For sure. For sure.
You know, and that's really what I want to drive home for folks, because, you know, those are things that I haven't really even talked about in a long time, but if it'll save you, I want it to.
Yeah.
So don't hide, try really hard not to hide your relationships from the beginning. You don't got to go through every detail. You don't got to say every text message that you got, but you don't want your family to be completely caught off guard, or your friends to be completely caught off guard that you had this secret relationship that didn't nobody know about, because we can't help what we don't know. And then as an ally and as that family and support system, you got to learn to be less judgmental. Like, you got to really learn how to just listen. I don't think that's a skill that a lot of people have. Like, you know, they go belligerent and they go crazy, and when you do all that, and when you start reacting out of yourself, you take away space from that victim who already had to work up the courage to come talk to you in the first place. So it's a two-parter, right? We're asking for a couple things, but if it means that your loved one doesn't pass away, I think it's worth it. If it means you don't end up in this situation, I think it's worth it. It's worth it to have the conversation. It's worth it to share with your family and friends and your, you know, whatever young people in your life that are looking up to you, because we really can't continue this way.
Right.
We just can't. Right. And I get scared because, you know, our people, the Tigrayans right now, are going through a genocide. And you know what the rhetoric is? Oh, we got to repopulate. Everybody needs to, you know, marry within your kind, and y'all got to have kids, and y'all whatever. And, you know, a lot of us are trauma bonding right now. You might accidentally bond to the wrong person, you know? And on top of that, the trauma that we're dealing with, if it doesn't go treated, if you guys don't go ask for help, you will find yourself in these toxic relationships. You might find yourself becoming an abuser when you never were an abusive person before, just because you have no outlet, you know? and you end up taking it out on your loved ones that are around you.
Yeah. You're going through all these other things. Wow.
Yeah. So I just want us to be aware and to have that in our minds, and to think about, what does it look like to take care of me and to make sure that I'm healthy and whole despite everything. Because for me, I got triggered last month with someone who thought it would be cute to harass me because they were drunk. And I saw red, because this is my trigger. Violence against women is a trigger.
Yeah.
Obviously, you didn't know that I lost my cousin and my aunt to this, right? But I don't take too kindly to any type of aggression.
Yeah.
I just don't. I will see red and I will fight back. And it's taken me a long time to like get those muscles under control, you know? And I was like, ooh, child, you're not gonna bring me out of character right now. Like I had to really think of, I don't want to be the hurt person that hurts people. So I had to find other healthy coping mechanisms to deal with that, and to talk to my friends and be able to say the things I want to say without judgment. And I needed those spaces. But it all started with the fact that I started doing that work on myself, because I don't want to bring that into my relationships, especially don't want to make my future partner pay for things that he never did. So I hope that that's helpful to everybody, because this is it's a heavy topic and there's a lot to understand. So I want to say thank you for doing this with me.
No problem.
We're over the hour, and this is the part of the show that I like to ask my favorite question, because you do this work and I know that your heart's in it and you're clearly great at it. So we want to see you succeed in whatever it is that you're working on. So my last question to all my guests is, what is it that you want your legacy to be?
Oh my God. Okay. That's a great question. When I think of my legacy, I honestly think of my kids and this future generation. If there's anything that I would want someone to say when I go on, is that Dr. T was able to make the best out of everything, right? Nothing is the end all be all. Like what was meant for evil can become good. And so don't dwell in the worst parts of your life, but how can I roll with these punches and make a story? If I have to make a blog that puts my business out there, but that blog ends up becoming a platform where I can speak to other people who are also going through similar situations, well, then allow that pain to fuel your purpose. A lot of times we try to discover our purpose through what pleases us. So what's my hobby? What am I good at? What I know more than anything is I don't want certain people to go through what I went through. My pain can fuel this purpose. So I would want my legacy is for this future generation, especially this technology generation, this social media generation. Love yourself, know yourself, and discover what's great about yourself, and allow those things, regardless of what you go through, to make you better and the space around you better. We are called to connect. So make sure that your connections are healthy and that the energy that you're receiving and outputting is good.
Ah, yes. I love that. I love that. And I love that for you. I don't know that I need to speak that into you, because I feel like you're already on that track. So I'm just gonna affirm and validate. Because that's how you came to us, right? You saw a need. Tejas reached out and you didn't hesitate. You were like, there's people who need help and who are suffering, and this is a skill that I have, and I can do that. I can pour into this community. And we are extremely thankful for it. I know people keep bringing it up. They're like, when y'all starting that again? Because they are like, what? I was like, I'm not even on the team, and I hear it like all the time.
That's hilarious.
Yes. And Tejas always be like, Dr. T got kids. She got things like, all of these things. So I just want to put that in your ear, that you are helping and you are making a difference, and people that I wouldn't even think, right, were being affected are. So
wow. That's powerful.
it's a beautiful gift that you have and you share. right? And I think that that's why you're able to continue, because I'm also a silver linings kind of person.
Yeah.
So I appreciate other people who are like that. It's not easy being glass half full over here.
That
Like,
part. Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of glass half empty out here. So I appreciate that so much. So yes, thank you so much, Dr. T. And I'm so excited to just continue doing this work because I just can feel that it's gonna change it for people. And that's my legacy, and that's what I hope will be the legacy I create for the ones that I've lost. Is if I can honor you through this by saving somebody else, and this is
Yeah.
where I get emotional, then I'm gonna do that, you know,
Yeah.
because theirs got cut short. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna carry that. I'm gonna carry that light for them. So whew, that is Black Women Wednesdays. Y'all, it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Please make sure that you are joining us Thursday evenings. We're going to be on Clubhouse, 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST. And we're going to continue this conversation because there's a lot to unpack and there's a lot to learn and go through. So I hope you guys will all join us on Clubhouse tomorrow. But that is our segment for today. So I appreciate you guys. If you didn't already, go follow, like, share, subscribe, all of those good things. If this is helpful, leave it in the comments. Show Dr. T some love, and make sure you go check out her blog. I'm nosy, so I want to go check it out too. I ain't even married. I ain't even married, and I want to go check it out. bluetonew.org. I didn't even know this existed, so I'm like, what the heck? Where have I been? You know, and that just makes me want to put my blog out even sooner.
I love it. Do it.
Oh, I know.
Do it.
You know, I got a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
I got a lot of feelings and thoughts, and they go into my journals, but my journals are usually not seen by people. So we will see how that goes. But yes, thank you so much, everybody. That's Black Women Wednesday. I will see y'all on Clubhouse tomorrow. Peace out, y'all.
Bye.